Okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Kalicube Tuesdays. Delighted to be here with Joseph J. Sherman, one of the best names I've ever heard in my life. And we're going to start with the song. Quick hello, and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Joseph J. Sherman. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Wonderful to have you here. Today, we're going to start, as always, with your brand SERP. I look my guests up, look at their brand SERP, see what pops up. And I was pretty surprised by yours because you were apparently an artist, which I hadn't realized. You're an artist first and a digital marketer second, or a digital marketer first and an artist second?
I'm a digital marketer for a profession and my art is for a passion.
Brilliant. Well, Google thinks you're more of an artist than a digital marketer, and today you're going to be more of a digital marketer than an artist. And what was interesting as well is that Joseph Sherman is a very common name, I imagine, and we actually have 5 different Joseph Shermans on that brand SERP right off the bat. You're number 1, but then we've also got the Canadian poet, who's also got See Results About, and somebody on LinkedIn who runs some kind of company, an IMDb, who wrote lots of old films from the 30s, and at the bottom, a nurse practitioner. And that's a fairly typical brand SERP for somebody who's got a common name. And you're right at the top there. And I actually tried searching John J. Sherman, but we didn't show it here today. And with that, you've absolutely nailed it, obviously. So great trick, putting the J in the middle to disambiguate.
Thank you.
Wonderful stuff. And today we're not talking about your brand SERP, we're going to be talking about effective media cadence for PR, and you have a kind of sales approach, which I really like. I've been reading through the description. I'm really looking forward to hearing the details. But before we get into that, the partners and sponsors, same thing as last week, we tried it out, and the animated video is absolutely delightful. So we're going to present the sponsors, if we can have that on screen. WordLift, as always, they've been here since the very, very beginning of the entire series a year and a half ago, coming on for 2 years now. There we go. They've been helping us, supporting us. They help us with our experiments. They build incredible internal knowledge graphs, and that's what we do at Kalicube as well, using the WordLift platform. And the headline sponsor this week, because Ahrefs will only be sponsoring again in March and April, it's Kalicube. And at Kalicube, we offer 3 solutions for your brand SERP. For beginners, we have the book, which is behind me here. And for intermediates, we have the brand SERP courses. And for the advanced, it's super duper agency people, we have the SaaS platform. And I did those mock-ups all on my own. Kalicube, it's all about your brand SERP. That's our motto. So with 2 sponsors, one of whom is a cheeky sponsor because it's ourselves, we shall continue with the show. So, Joseph, I see that you have this approach, which is sales. Now, I'm looking at it and thinking about sales. How would you describe it? Because that might be a bit rude. I do apologize if it is.
That's okay. So my approach is based on Cadence, and Cadence is a sales idea of how am I going to reach my ideal customer? Is it going to be a combination of SEO, of social media, of cold calling, warm leads, whatever that combination, and how do I plan that out for the week, the month, the year to reach who I'm trying to reach? And for many marketers and many sales organizations, that's part and parcel of who they are as the company. But when it comes to PR, sometimes it's outsourced to a PR company. Sometimes it's done internally. But there's this gap of how do I reach people? When I reach people, how do we communicate that with the relevant person? And the value is not usually clear. For example, if you have a lead come in, like if you have a lead
that's absolutely brilliant. Sorry, there's a slight delay. We'll just have to be careful about interrupting each other. But yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So if people contact you and you recognize, wow, this is a $1 million account or potentially $1 million account or euro account, you're going to say, wow, I got to take care of this. This is a big account. But when it comes to PR, if someone reaches you and they say, Jason, I want to speak with you and I want to interview you for an international newspaper or or international TV media outlet, and but you haven't heard of that because it's in a country you don't know about, or the communication wasn't there between your assistant or your email filter and yourself, then it may be $1 million worth of media, but that's not attributed the same weight in the organization as $1 million account from an account you or would from a company you might recognize.
Yeah. Now, if I can kind of plead guilty here, is when we first started talking to each other, it was Milos who put us in contact, and I made that exact mistake. Is Times of Israel didn't seem to me to be phenomenally important in all of the different things I had to do, and it got pushed back, and I didn't treat you with the respect that I should have in terms of kind of what it was going to bring me, and we ended up sorting that out. How close was I to messing up by not paying attention and not actually kind of treating that as a real lead?
Just as close as I was to when someone that you referred me to, and I didn't realize that they were a CEO of a major company as a journalist, also as a writer. So I'm also guilty, and it's very easy because especially doing international work and trying to get work with people from around the world, and recognizing that the Times of Israel, it's a blog. How does that work, and who are these people, and who do I want to work with? It's very easy to lose that focus. And also, when we're working with diversified teams, assistants around the world and different people, it gets more and more complicated to make sure that even in the best point, when you do have someone that wants to interview you or feature you on their site, that, how do I make sure they're a priority? And that's when we've already got to the high point of, I've already gotten someone who wants to feature me. And then there's,
But I mean, as you say, with a sale, you kind of think, well, this is a potential $1 million or $100,000 lead. And so it's really easy to prioritize, because you say, well, the person who's going to be spending $100, we can put them to the back of the queue. But with PR, it's really difficult to quantify how valuable that lead is likely to be. How do you do that?
That's a great question. It's opaque for several reasons. First is because you don't necessarily know, and it's not so clear from the very beginning how much coverage you're going to get. Is this a quote or is this a full article? Is this is it, I'm going to be in the, are they looking for something right now, or are they looking to feature me in 6 months, and they want to do a full article about you? And I think it's also because fundamentally, especially in new media and digital media, people have different goals. You as a marketer, for example, you have a new book coming out, and people want to interview you, imagine, for your book, and want to share your information.
Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. No, it's a perfect example. So you have information to share. People want to reach you for that information. And then you as an author have multiple goals, right? You want to sell your book, you want to gain clients, you want to have, other projects that you're working on related around that, maybe speaking engagements, things. So you have, when you engage with a journalist or a blogger or another podcaster, you have all of these things in your mind of like, my SERP also, wow, how is this going to show up in my SERP? So all of these things are important to you. And I think any business person needs to think, what are my goals for this specific campaign? What I want to reflect, or what I want to share? And then think about it from what many people think about that. But what many people don't think about is, what does the journalist or the blogger or the podcaster have in their mind? And oftentimes there are multiple levels of what that person on the other end of the communication has. For example,
Sorry, just really quickly. I mean, that takes a lot of empathy. I mean, I think a lot of us approach things from a me point of view of thinking, this is what I want, and we try to impose it. And especially with a journalist, the journalist is looking for something specific, and imposing things on them is never going to work, or very rarely works.
That's right. Imposing things very rarely works. But what does work is seeing what are their goals and how can I meet those goals. For example, maybe a journalist was told by their editor, I need an article about brand SERP and find me an expert and interview 3 people. And oh wow, big boss said I need to write a great article about brand SERP. Who's a good person for that? I know where to go. And let's say that their article was due, yesterday. or very soon, then that person has to very quickly, in a few days, put together something, make sure it meets all the requirements. And so in that case, you want to put something together and give them the quality and information that's relevant for, first of all, their publication, right? Just like you did when I interviewed you. I need something relevant to Israel because Times of Israel is in Israel. If I'm writing for another publication, then I need to make sure it's relevant for that publication. So that's on just an institutional level. But then you have,
yeah, I mean, when you said to me we need to turn this around so that it's relevant for Israeli companies, my first reaction was, oh dear. And then I slept on it and thought, okay, you gave me a good idea. Then I slept on it, and between us we came up with something. And I mean, it sounds terribly pretentious. We worked together to find the solution, which is delightful. And that's maybe the attitude we need.
That's right. That is the best attitude. And that also worked because we had the time frame of the type of the nature of the article. But I loved how you did that. And then you found examples of your leading companies, show them side by side. And that's a perfect example of trying to meet it and connect to the organization, the news media, and also the specific chain of blogs for that author. Because every author on a publication might have their own style or the interest, and it has to flow together. If another writer from the same publication had reached out to you or connected with you, they might say, I write about articles and stories, and I need you to tell me about people you've worked with or in a different style. And so they might have a completely different thing they're asking for.
Right. And that kind of whole thing is, I mean, if it's a relationship where I need to understand what you're looking for and the time frame as well, which hadn't really occurred to me, is we were lucky to have that long time frame. And it's a relationship where I really need to understand your point of view. And as you said, in sales, we tend to think, what does the client need, because we want to please them so much because we're going to get $500,000 from them. And here, once again, we run into that problem of not really knowing. So what's the next step? Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's perfect. That's great. And so the next step is thinking a little bit beyond who is the writer or person that I'm trying to reach out to, and what is their organization, and what are their personal goals. Because you can have someone writing for, let's say, the Wall Street Journal because they want to get paid by the publication, or do they want to get their own reputation moved up? Are they trying to move into, maybe they're an academic, or they're trying to move into academia, and they're writing for this publication because they want to be well known in a certain circle and get a certain appointment at a university, or they're trying to get their own consulting firm moving. So the more you think about not just what is their publication goal, but what is their bigger long-term goal. Sometimes that's clear. Sometimes you can go to someone's webpage or their LinkedIn site and say, I see they write for multiple publications and they say, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I've moved into. And sometimes it's not so clear, at least for the initial steps.
Right. Yeah. So a bit of polite stalking is definitely necessary in this particular case. And one thing I wanted to kind of bring to the fore is, in terms of brand SERPs, is what we've now learned at Kalicube, is that our own sources, our own profiles, and profiles we obviously control, like Crunchbase, are really good for educating Google. But at the end of the day, they've got a really very fast half-life, and articles on third-party sites like Milosh, in fact, who's incredibly relevant, that was really powerful for me. And the Times of Israel too, obviously an important publication in a major country. And from that perspective, I think from an educating Google brand SERP and knowledge graph point of view, this is phenomenally important. So please take me to step 3 because I need to learn this technique.
Thank you. I think that's actually the next path is looking at it. If your focus is on, for example, brand SERP, what is the shelf life of the article, and how does Google treat them? What is their domain authority?
Right.
And then even more on a more personal level is, what is my relationship with this specific person, with the person interviewing me, or that I'm communicating with. So maybe it's a short a link building firm might reach out to me and say, I want an article. I'm like, okay, who are you? Why should I care about you? And are you treating me like a one hit wonder? Or are we trying to build a relationship, and I can interview you now, I can interview you in 6 months or a year when you come out with another book, or another major event happens, and I need you as an expert. So it's not just about the one time I got my quick fix, so to speak, with this blogger or journalist, and now I'm happy for life because I need to move on. But thinking, I want to reach out and build that relationship, and as that, like any business relationship, the more you work with someone, you can build it and go, to higher levels and build up value there.
Right. And to what extent can you kind of, once you've exchanged with them, maybe you've done that first article, to what point can you kind of let that relationship sleep and then hope to wake it up in a year's time? I mean, we talk about the fact you can't maintain more than 5 close friends or something like that, and it's impossible to juggle all these relationships. How much do you need to maintain that relationship in between the times when you're actually going to be working together?
That's great. I think that also goes back to excellent question. I think that also goes back to thinking about what is important to the person. Meaning, if this person is an up and coming journalist or writer, or they're also working on their own books or their own things, it's really good to have a schedule and say, okay, these are the 10 or so authors and journalists and bloggers that I'm working with, and like their podcast, or like their like them on LinkedIn, or comment and give them feedback and engage with them, not asking for another feature, if it's 6 months or a year, but just keeping them in the loop and keeping that relationship fresh. And that's also very nice. That's one. And also, when you see, they ask, I'm writing about this, does anyone know an expert in a certain field? You could say, yeah, I know so and so. That's also a nice thing to connect all your connections. If you say, I need to interview a startup founder who can talk about a certain topic, and you say, one of my clients is a startup founder, I did brand SERP for him, now I want to, I could give him or her some nice attention here, and it's relevant and it works and they understand how everything is. That's also a very nice way.
Right. Which brings me to another question, which is kind of a step back in many ways, is the cold calling or cold contacting people. I mean, that seems to me to be really, really difficult. I mean, I've always imagined, right, what you maybe should do is get yourself seen on social media by popping up in their feed every now and then call them or then contact them. Is that the correct strategy, or can you just pitch up and say, hi, please write an article about me?
That great question. So I think saying, hi, can you write an article about me, is probably not the best way. But yeah, but if you see this person has written 20, 30, 70 articles on a certain topic, you could, when instead of writing about me, say, I see that you're writing these articles, and first stop, if they're on LinkedIn, or everyone's on social, whatever social platform they're on, engage with them a little bit there so they recognize who you are before that email comes in. And then and not even pitching your own yourself as a possible target, as a possible sales target, as a possible a feature, but just, I like your article, this was interesting, maybe offer your own insight, and then a few engagements later, say, I see that you're writing about this. Here's some ways I can help you. I wrote a book about brand SERP. Here's certain things that may be interesting to you, and write it about them. How can I help them? Do you need an expert? Do you need an expert in something unrelated to what I do? But yet I can help you, connect you with people and being
Right.
a resource as opposed to someone who's taking.
Right. Yeah, I've actually noticed that, but more with kind of business contacts as opposed to PR contacts. But I'm now going to spread it across that. Is that I get quite a lot of requests from people I work with saying, "Oh, can you recommend this kind of person or this kind of company?" And
Hmm.
people see me as somebody who knows lots of different people, and maybe I can help them find great solutions. And I realize that, yeah, I can, and that's really useful. And the same goes for PR, and I should use that strategy there. Is that basically it?
That's right. That's basically it.
Brilliant. And in terms of kind of developing the strategy, I mean, you say in the description, proactively seek new media opportunities in a similar way that the company would pursue new business opportunities. I read that off the screen. Can you explain that? Because I'm terribly intrigued.
Yes. Thank you. So if I'm looking for new business opportunities, I'm going to probably run a social media campaign, reach
Mm,
out to people on LinkedIn by engaging with them and seeing what they're doing, and then seeing if they're relevant for me. If they're not relevant, I don't want to I don't want to spend my time or their time on it. And if they are relevant, start to engage with them. One of the biggest things that I hate as a journalist, and that probably people hate also if I'm working as a SDR or a BDR, reaching out to people, is why did you contact me? And
mhm.
if it's I'm trying to sell you something you don't need, then like get lost. Like don't waste my time, don't waste your time. Like what's going on? But if you start from the beginning of I have something, to offer you that can actually bring you real value. And first I'm contacting you on LinkedIn, or I'm contacting you by email, or whatever, all these different sources. That's the real value. And going back to your original question of how do I do it, it depends. For everyone's different. If you're on LinkedIn and you love LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn. If you're on Twitter and you love Twitter, be on Twitter. I'm agnostic in terms of the platform. And there are, and you probably want to find out, where does the journalist hang out. If you're like,
Right.
if you say, I really think that this specific journalist or blogger is relevant to my business, then but they're on a platform that I'm not used to. Well, it takes common sense, but it's kind of uncommon common sense to say they might be on LinkedIn because that's my favorite profile,
Mhm.
but they're I should be on another platform that they're on, even if it's something I'm not comfortable with. And
Right.
I think that's
Yeah,
that's
I
a
mean,
that's a big thing. Yeah.
yeah. So, is that something Ted Rubin was saying about business, is communicate with people in the manner that they're used to, on the platform they're used to. And if they prefer LinkedIn, that's where you should be going, because it's up to you to adapt to them, and communicate with them. Sorry, go ahead. Ooh, we've half lost Joseph. I can't hear him anymore. So the last question was going to be all about setting up meetings. You mentioned setting up meetings. I mean, you're saying, just like with a prospect, sit down and talk to them face to face. That's incredibly
Hmm.
powerful.
That's right. As much as possible, set up meetings. And re- a few things to think about when you're setting up meetings. One is the time zone. Like,
Oh.
uh, what country are you in? What country are they in? And what country are they in at the moment when you are going to have the meeting?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, like, and especially if it's something with like 12 noon or midnight, make sure it's very clear AM or PM. Uh,
Mm,
and try to set up meetings. If it's Zoom or another platform, face to face is always. I mean, it's always that always. I prefer that. I've found that to be very helpful. It's not always possible, but try to get to meetings, and also keep in mind that it's a process. Your
mm.
first time with a journalist or a blogger, they might list you in a column of top 10 books for brand SERP this year. And
Yeah.
someone might be like, I wasn't number one. Well, be glad that you were number 5 or 10 or on the list. Like keeping the the expectation of, just because I got a meeting and I spoke with a someone for an hour, maybe a win for that particular author, yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry, exactly. Sorry, I wasn't interrupting. I was just thinking about something. Is that I was
Ah,
talking to somebody a while ago, about 2 years ago now, and we were talking about brand SERPs, and they were going, "Yeah, I don't really care," but they were listening. And in fact, what then happened is that when they wrote a summary of a wrap up of 2021, one of the things they talked about was, have brand SERPs been overhyped, and are they going to be a thing in
mm,
2022? And so it stuck in their mind, and that was really pleasant in the sense that there wasn't any result immediately, but the result was much, much further down the line. And that long-term patience is really difficult to have, isn't it?
it is. It is. It's difficult to have, and it also goes back to thinking about the other person because a lot of
Mm.
times in digital media, we're used to instant.
Yeah,
I can post on a certain platform in 5 minutes, and I have to think about the post, and I hit press, I hit publish, and it goes. It's live. But
mm.
if it's on a publication, they have their own timelines, and that timeline could be 5 days, it could be 5 months, it could be they might be backed up for a long time. They could have their own schedules changed based on the editor and based on other business circumstances.
Right.
So just like you're saying, think about the time frame, and sometimes it takes a year or more for that initial meeting to turn into the type of a deal. Just like any in a business might take people, for the end of the year or the 6 months to come around and realize, okay, now we're finished with this and we're ready to start, the next project or the next product. And that's when we want to invite you in with our company.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so I mean, thinking more long term, building up relationships, and looking at this as a process in which you're going to talk and exchange with journalists, much like they would be clients. That's absolutely brilliant, Joseph. Thank you so much. That was absolutely awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening if you're on the podcast. And now I'm going to introduce next week, which is going to be Brie Anderson, data-driven SEO and data-driven SEO and always be testing. I don't know if it's Brie or Brie, but I like Brie because it's the same as the French cheese, and I was eating that at lunchtime. So we'll be seeing Brie next week. I'm really looking forward to that. Joseph, could you pass the baton?
I'm so looking forward to hearing about what Brie is going to say about analytics, managing SEO and everything online with data and measuring everything is tremendously important. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what Brie has to say.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joseph. That was a delightful discussion. I'm going to take away a lot of tips and tricks, and I'm going to be much better at PR outreach from now on inwards. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and see you next week. Kalicube Tuesdays. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jason.
Brilliant. Oh, a quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Joseph. Oh, thank you, Anton, man.